The Intrusion Vector is a metaphysical catalog of abduction, a document that was produced as a found document style piece of science fiction by yours truly. I am the author, Hakeem Ali-Bocas Alexander. The Intrusion Vector, a metaphysical catalog of abduction. The Verifiers, these entities, are up to no good. You know, one of the things that they have been able to do is really very disturbing, in that they have people believing that they are doing, or that they're engaging in activities that are healthy and wholesome, things that are good for them, when actually people are in many ways wasting away. They're neglecting their basic needs for food and shelter, you know, to just basic things like drinking water, going to the bathroom, all while the people going through this feel like they're living in bliss. They're having the time of their lives. You know, a couple things that this reminds me of. There's a movie called Serenity that was was made to be a conclusion for the TV show called Firefly that never got to finish fully for whatever reasons. I think, is it Joss Whedon who either produced or wrote, or I don't know what he did. I just heard the name. I'm not really that familiar with a lot of people who do things like that, even though I might be into the final production. I actually heard about the, Joss Whedon more definitively from another fictional character, which is Sheldon Cooper from The Big Bang Theory, and apparently he was a fan of it. So, but there's an episode there. So a big part of that movie, spoiler alert, by the way, if you haven't watched Serenity, but spoiler coming up here, is that one part of the movie which I found fascinating because of my studies of psychopharmacology, basically meaning the drugs that are used in psychiatry. There's a drug in the movie called Paxalon Hydrochlorate, and it sounds strikingly similar to Paxil, which is a hydrochloride. And what's interesting is that the fictional Paxalon Hydrochlorate in the movie seems to mock, but in an extreme way, some of the adverse reactions or negative side effects, the bad or unwanted side effects that Paxil can actually have, but which is also related to the drug in the Intrusion Vector called Somnus. But, and you know, they have their differences, but Paxalon Hydrochlorate, basically, it was used to pacify. And that's interesting because I believe that these words etymologically might be related. The word pacify might be related to paz and peace, and pax, which is the Latin for peace, pax. So Paxalon and Paxil, you know, may very well have their roots. I'm going to guess that this is right, in the Latin word for peace, because in the movie Serenity, what happened was they actually put that into the air, the filtration system of the planet, in order to basically pacify or calm down the people. I think the people were getting frustrated. Maybe they were fighting or rebelling. I don't know exactly what was going on. I don't recall. Haven't watched the movie in a long time. But they actually became so docile and passive that one of the effects was that everybody just stopped everything. Like, they became so peaceful, rest in peace. They just, right where they were, standing, sitting, eating, talking, drinking, whatever, they just stopped in their tracks and just died where they were. And that's also one of the adverse reactions, negative side effects of Paxil, the psychiatric drug. Is not in that extreme, I don't think, but that people have been known to become really lethargic. It could also cause problems that can lead to death, just like a lot of pharmaceutical drugs. But I found that fascinating because, it was to subdue or to really just get something under control in the populace, and it ended up going to the extreme. And the Verifiers in the Intrusion Vector, they basically use something similar to pacify everyone, but people aren't dying in that way. It's very peaceful. It's a very peaceful, but for many people it might be a very terrifying story. It's very close to reality to me, the Verifiers, just in different levels of just how human beings are being made to be okay with killing themselves slowly, and just not even knowing that so many things that they're doing through consumption, the things that they're watching, listening to, reading, the people that they're around, the food that they're eating, the things that they're drinking, the drugs, the medication, so much of it is acting in a very similar fashion to slowly, gradually induce a lethargic type of passive conformity. Even though there are things that people may find to be against their best interest, they are doing them anyway and acting as if it's A-okay, and then making excuses for it, and even defending the very things that are actually destroying their health. And so that's a fascinating aspect of what's related to the Paxalon Hydrochlorate, but it's in the Intrusion Vector. And so another thing that it reminds me of is how in the movie The Matrix, that people are being fed this illusion, this dream, because, I don't know, for some reason the mind has to keep active, people have to keep alive in order to have their minds, but while their bodies are plugged in so that the machines can basically use them like batteries, but meanwhile everybody's just kind of going through their life, living in bliss. I think there was even something mentioned that they couldn't make it too utopian because then people would be uncomfortable with, like, people just can't have too much peace, right? So they had to make it more like the real world with, the common struggles and challenges and everything like that, so that it would feel real to the human psyche. And so people are just plugged into these machines and, acting as if everything is just hunky-dory, just going on as it should be. And so it's these kind of obsessions. Like, one of the families in there, they have this mass hallucination, which is what the Matrix is basically, right? It's this mass hallucination. There's even some parallels to, if you think about the Truman Show, but everybody is in on it except for Truman. I wonder, if there were other people who were put in there with Truman, it would kind of be like a mass hallucination for them, right? Because they think that the whole stage and everything is real, when in fact it's all a show starring them, but unbeknownst to them. So, and there's a lot of things like that. Life is a lot like that. Now, I mean, it makes me wonder sometimes, is the Intrusion Vector, which borrows names from all over the place. Like, the Intrusion Vector is something that's used in testing, computational systems, and then the Verifiers is actually the name of a whole other book. But a lot of these things seem appropriate. Even Somnus, the Ascendant Knot. By the way, here's an Easter egg there. My brother kind of caught onto it. I don't know if he knew, if he saw it somewhere, but in Virginia Beach, in the neighborhood where I live right now, there's a church called Serenity Church, and I'll have to take a photo of it some point in time and post it with one of my podcasts, so that it can be compared side by side to the Ascendant Knot, the Trinity Church. But that's also sort of, in a way, my silent commentary on how religion plays into this kind of surreptitious mind control. It's my take on this. It's sort of a nod to the power of religious dogma. So, yeah, I mean, it's not the most original symbol in the world, and it's got roots in other design. They say, there's nothing new under the sun. And a lot of times, making use of things that are already known but in a different way, like, I didn't name the book the Verifiers, right? It's the Intrusion Vector. It's something that is a process that's known about. And the Verifiers is the name of the book, right? So it lends a little bit of familiarity to the landscape, which is like something that I borrowed from. If you look at, like, there are, in grocery stores, for example, a lot of grocery stores have their own in-store versions of various different products, right? And oftentimes these store brand versions will be made in such a way that the packaging, color, and various different aspects of it will look very familiar or similar to the other name brands. And so sometimes if you're shopping on the shelf, which I do a lot of personal shopping for people, I don't shop for a lot of that garbage myself, which is also part of the program of the Verifiers, all the stuff that people are consuming. But the packages on the shelf, sometimes they use the same colors, the same fonts, a lot of things, so that, people might be going to the store and they'll pick up the store brand by accident and then check out and maybe be too late, or just think to themselves, I picked it up anyway, might as well give it a try. So, I mean, it's some dark psychology there of what's going on with that stuff. And so I borrowed that. There's things that are already familiar, things that people might be searching for, that might be somewhat more obscure or in a completely different field, or be used in a completely different way. But it has that similar thing, right? People are out there looking for something familiar, and they get it, but it's just that the packaging is the same. The contents might be similar in some ways, right? Like Intrusion Vector and Verifiers, there are various aspects of the inner workings of these things that not only just borrowed in on the surface, but also have some other things that have to do with it that are also used in this way. So, the Intrusion Vector, a metaphysical catalog of abduction by yours truly, Hakeem Ali-Bocas Alexander. You can find it in my own personal bookstore, which is at books.by/uniquilibrium, and also on Amazon and various other places. It's in Barnes & Noble as well, Books A Million, and various other places.